Hello again. Welcome to Spotlight, a ray of creative hope in the darkest months.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
This evening, we catch up with local author Rob Cowley as he brings out the latest publication in his Manx Bedtime Stories Project, with a fantastic new talent doing the artwork. And speak to the director of a poignant, uplifting work, receiving its Isle of Man premiere at Ballacameen Studio Theatre. As always, do get in touch with any creative artistic endeavours you may be involved in, planning, hoping to create, or would really like to, indeed, put in that spotlight. The spotlight, this spotlight, be they poetic, visual, theatrical, musical, literary, mime, anything in between or in addition to. Spotlight at manxradio.com or Howard Kane at manxradio.com. E on the cane. We are getting a few of you making use of this, but more would of course be wonderful. The more people we have getting in touch about their artistic endeavours, the more interesting the programme will be. So, if you listen to 1 to 3 with Christy D, if not, why not? Or its predecessor, Late Lunch, you will almost certainly have heard of the accidental author, Rob Cowley, a retired teacher, started making up stories for his grandchildren, just for the hell of it, I think, but is now releasing his third book in what has become an ongoing series of children's bedtime stories, all raising money for great causes. Following on from Red, a Manx dragon called Rufus, Pink, the adventures of a Manx fairy, which raised funds, of course, for breast cancer, now Isle of Man. Now we have Blue, a Manx fire engine called Walter. Illustrations done by the uber-talented young artist, 14-year-old Griagh Smith. And as ever, proceeds going towards charity, raising a target of £1,000 for the Age Concern Hardship Fund to help the elderly on the island. Well, Griagh and Rob called in to tell me a little bit more. I asked Rob, how did it all start?
It started with an accidental book. In fact, Manx Radio nicknamed me the accidental author at the time when I wrote a book with my grandson, Ryan, called No Entry, that raised £1,000 for autism in Man, which was lovely, and that should have been the end of it. But then COVID came and we had lockdown, and my wife and granddaughter missed each other so much because they couldn't be together across the water. And so I wrote another book called Pink, The Adventures of a Manx Fairy, which obviously being pink was for breast cancer. We raised £1,000 for breast cancer. And then I had to admit that I was enjoying the process. And so the one thing I hadn't done was try and write a book for the general public. So I wrote Red, which was a Manx dragon called Rufus, which raised £1,000 for our Listen, the mental health charity on the island. And that went down well and is being used in our primary schools, which was, as an ex-school teacher, really nice. And I then decided, in fact, you mentioned on one of your programmes it could become a rainbow set of books. So the next story was Blue. And because Carmen, who'd illustrated the other books, was doing her GCSEs and getting ready for college, I went to my old head of department, Stuart Mason, at St Ninian's and said, have you got a talented young artist for me? And he came up with Griagh.
Oh, so that's where you come in, Griagh, then.
Yeah.
So what was your sort of a brief, as it were, what were you actually asked to do?
Well, my art teacher, he came up to me one day and he said, listen, there's an author looking for a talented artist and, like, maybe you should have a go at it, sign up, like, send me some of your pictures. And I did that. And a few days later or so, he was like, hey, you're illustrating a book now. And I was like, wow.
You got the job.
Yeah.
Wow, what a fantastic thing to have, to suddenly be in print and being illustrated. Is this something you've been thinking about for a while? Are you hoping maybe to get into illustration or something to that with your art?
Yeah, ever since, like, I was young, I'd always wanted to, like, follow a career path in, like, art, and I thought maybe, like, illustrating books, like, seemed very nice.
And so when it comes to illustrating, because it's a real skill, obviously you have to have the artistic skill, but then you've got to have the imagination and be able to communicate with the author. So when you were talking to Rob and thinking about it, did you have discussions about, right, what the story was, what the characters were, what sort of images you were going to come up with?
Yeah, loads.
it came around to the fact that I would do some very bad sketches
Yep.
and pass them on to Griagh, who would make them into lovely pictures. And it worked very well as a partnership. And we've come up with a book now that is really, I think, excellent.
So this is Blue, Walter, the Royal Fire Engine. What's the sort of the basis behind this one? Because they've all been slightly different as we go through the colours of the rainbow, as you say. So obviously here's a fire engine. What else can you tell us?
Well, all the books have a theme running through them. So with Red, it was about individuality, finding your own voice in the world, and acceptance. Blue is not an autobiography, but it's about an old fire engine that's been forgotten about in a shed that's found by a little elf who gets him working, and he goes out into the magic kingdom, solves a big problem. And the theme of it really is respecting the elderly in our community. So with age comes wisdom.
Absolutely. I like to think so.
And that is the theme that runs through this book. And hopefully it's raising money for Age Concerned Hardship Fund. I think the elderly on the island are going to have a very difficult winter. So if we can raise £1,000 through the sale of this book, I'm sure that will help.
And so did you have, getting back to working with Griagh, because you were saying you'd rough out a few sketches, did you have in your mind's eye, Rob, then an idea of what you wanted Walter to look like, or did you sort of leave it to Griagh to come up with her own artistic interpretation?
A bit of both again.
Yeah.
I had an idea of an old fire engine, which I sent, but really it's down to Griagh. She wasn't happy at drawing fire engines to start with. It wasn't her particular genre, but she has done incredibly well, and the illustrations through the book get better and better and better.
They are fantastic. So did you have a view then, Griagh, of what you saw? Because they're fantastic illustrations. I've had a look at a few, and they're sort of quite manga-esque. Are you sort of coming from a sort of manga background, or is that sort of stuff you like?
Yeah, a bit. I had to look on for inspiration, because fire engines or cars in general not really my strong point. So yeah.
What is the thing? I mean, if you're on your own, what's your favourite thing if you're doing your own art? What is the sort of stuff that inspires you in your art?
I usually like to make my own characters and my own little backstories for them. That's pretty much it, really.
Right. And what sort of medium do you normally work in? Mixed media, or with crayon, or with pencil, or watercolours, or what you work in, or just on screen, or on digital?
If I'm doing something like a big project, it'll usually be digital. But if I want to just sketch for fun, then it'll be pencil and paper, and that's it.
Okay.
That's what blew me away to start with, because Mr. Mason invited me in and showed me these digital pictures that Griagh was doing already in year 9, so now year 10, and that just showed me that the skill was there. The medium was the right medium for the books that I'm doing. It was just about her adapting towards the storyline that was in the book.
It is. They're an incredible series going on, and of course, it's always raising money, as you say, for good concerns, which is the even more amazing thing about it. Is it carrying on? I mean, we're up to Blue now. Where do we go from here?
Oh, yes. It's become very nice, because I get to meet some lovely people as I go around talking about the books, particularly with the WI, who've been great. We've got a couple of people now who I call my fairy godmothers, who help with the project in the background. And 2023 is already planned.
Wow, that's quick.
So the next book in the series is Green, which is about a short-sighted dinosaur called Donk. And that's actually going to be for Sight Matters, and I've already been up and talked with Ian up at Sight Matters, and I'm recording these books on his audio library. So that's already planned, and Carmen's doing that book again, because she's now settled in college. Wow. So she's able to find the time now to do some illustrating, and then Griagh comes back in with Yellow, which is about a circus elephant called Gertrude, and that's all about the importance of friendships. Wow. And these are all, I think, good messages for that 10 minutes of reading to your little ones just before bedtime. And I think if you can just sow a seed in that lovely, lovely time, you never know. And that's the theme for 2023, 2 more books. And if anyone wants to help sponsor, they're very welcome. Just get in touch with me, and we'll add you to the family of the Manx Bedtime Stories Project.
And there's a link to Just Giving, I think, on this one. Is that right?
No, the Just Giving bit we tried out last year as a possible way of raising funds. It didn't catch
Okay.
So I've closed that down.
Right.
In fact, it's just the lovely Manx people who generally help and support when you meet them. We did the Royal Show, and that proved to be quite a good source of sales, and generally the WI and the local bookshops, and I have to give a shout out to ShopRite because they have been very supportive with all the books. So as of the 14th of November, you can find Blue next to their checkout counters, and every penny will go into the Age Concern Hardship Fund. So it's a win-win for me.
Fantastic. And any other outlets you can pick up Blue if you're looking for Blue, maybe for a little one for this Christmas coming up, of course?
Yes, well, there'll be in the local bookshops.
Mm-hmm.
Manx Heritage has been very good. They've had red and pink now, and I'm sure they'll twist their arm and they'll have blue in their museums. You can actually buy them online as well. From if you have people across, they can go online to bunchcreative.im and straight to the publisher, and I get the orders and post them out. And they all get signed as well, which is nice.
Even better. And Griagh, so you're already signed up for one after next, is it?
Yeah.
So, do you have early thoughts, or is that sort of on the back burner for the time being?
I try and think about it as much as I can, just to like get a head start, so I know what I'm doing this time.
And any other projects of your own? Do you have any projects you work on yourself?
Not particularly, but I get the occasional, like, I want to do some drawing, I want to create something big, and then that's when I'd hop on my iPad and draw something that comes to mind and try and make it as good looking as I can.
Absolutely. And this is just a fantastic launchpad. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful launchpad as a career going into illustration. Would that be the dream, to become a full-time illustrator?
It would, yeah, I'd love that.
I can see it happening already.
Talking about launches, the book is going to be launched
Great.
at the Douglas Family Library on Saturday the 12th of November.
Lovely.
At 10 a.m.
Will you both be there?
Oh yes, we'll be there. We'll be signing copies, and hopefully they'll press you down for a photograph. Age Concern are going to be there, and there may even be a fire engine. Sue is a lovely person who runs the library, and she's going to try very hard to get a fire engine there if it's not busy doing something else. And I must just give a couple more shout-outs, if you don't mind.
Of course. Because,
I mean, Paul at the car shop is going to try and put a book in every primary school, and that's just a great thing to do. All this came around because of the support of the Arts Council. They gave me a leg up to get this project going, and I think we need to be thankful of having an Arts Council on the Isle of Man that can
Indeed.
help these sort of projects. So all in all, it really has been wonderful. And a third cog of the wheel is Phoebe at Bunch Creative. She's a graphic designer who puts the design of the books together, and she's just so talented as well. So I'm really lucky. I just write the story, and then these lovely ladies take over and make it into something wonderful.
That launch date again, Saturday the 12th of November, Family Library in Douglas between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Stay tuned to hear more, no doubt, next year about Rob's ongoing series.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
Now, the ever-busy Lisa Kreisky is hard at it. Nothing new there, I hear you say. With the company she co-runs with bestie Christine Sutcliffe, Stage Door Entertainment, this time something rather different. They like something rather different there, you know. Elegies for Punks and Raging Queens will receive its Isle of Man premiere, to the best of my knowledge at least. Shout at me if I've got that wrong. At Ballaghameen Studio Theatre between the 24th and 26th of November. It's a great title for a poignant piece, but is it play, review, musical, or all three? A question I put to Lisa when she flew in, almost literally. It was a very blustery day, to the Spotlight studio.
We played this dive in the village, somewhere on the edge. During the breaks I'd hang out.
Well, there's a little bit of everything, really. It's predominantly a musical. It is the story is inspired by the named memorial quilt, which was a commemorative art installation to honour the people who had died of during the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s. And it was a quilt. So there are lots of different panels made by the deceased loved ones. Each of our characters in our show is based upon one of the panels of this quilt. because each of the panels sort of memorialises somebody who has died. Now that sounds very sort of downbeat and depressing, doesn't it? But the music is just awe-inspiring. It's beautiful. It's jazz, it's blues, it's a little bit of pop. There are obviously some incredibly tragic stories in the play, but there's also some really uplifting, really inspiring stories as well. And there are some characters who, the best way I can describe them is just laugh out loud characters who you would see in, you know, one of the big musicals that you see at the Gaiety Theatre. It really is a massively diverse array of characters and of actors in it.
What drew you to the play in the first place then? Was it the actual topic, or was it something, had you seen it before or heard of it before?
Well, for me, I personally did the show when I was living in the UK. And I really enjoyed it. I love the fact that there was such a big cast and each person got to do some real, as we say, proper acting. You know, they're only given a little bit of information about each of the characters in their short little monologue. So it gives the opportunity for the actor to really get down into the nitty gritty, make up their own backstory, and really be inspired and challenged by what's there on the page.
And is it, as you say, or hinted at there, pretty sizable cast?
It is. It's a cast of over 36 people, each with their own individual storyline and their own journey, all local people, which we're really, really excited about. There are some people who we've worked with before, some people who we never even heard of before we cast this show. And
I saw something on Facebook saying it's a who's who of Manx theatre talent.
Well, that is not my words, but a very, very kind way of putting it. It is. It's
minus me, of course.
Of course. But we're really so fortunate that so many people have wanted to work with us. You know, we've got the beautiful Vida La Fierce, the infamous Manx drag queen.
Yeah, brilliant.
We've got, Mike Bonner, who obviously we've worked with loads and loads of different times. We've got some new people that are up and coming. We've got Casey Crane, who's just played Kinnicky in Greece, but he'd never had a principal role before that. Who else have we got? Oh, we've got Owen Atkinson, who is the Manx bard, who may be playing a character that you've never seen him play before. You know, we're used to seeing him as his drag persona, Fenella Beach. We've got people from arts backgrounds. We've got sort of executive level people who are from big corporations who, you know, want to try their hand at a bit of acting. So it really is. It's got something for everybody. It's got poetry. It's got beautiful music. It's got great characters. And
directorial challenges then, I assume, then, with such a varied and sizable cast?
Well, for me, as the director, I've given myself a bit of an extra challenge, really, because we've been rehearsing everybody individually, because it's lots and lots of different monologues from lots of different people. So we've been having sessions, one-to-one sessions with the actors and the singers, and we're not actually bringing everybody together until the week before the performance. So when we finally bring everybody together as a full cast and ensemble, it's going to be the first time any of these actors have heard the other people's stories. It's going to be the first time they've heard the music. It's going to be the first time that they've seen what mine and Chrissy's vision is, which I think is going to be a real challenge, but it's going to make sure that their reactions and their interactions are completely genuine. And, you know, there might be some surprises in there too. You never know.
I think it's bound to be at that rate. It's a poignant piece from all accounts then. Is it uplifting, would you say, at the end? Because clearly it's dealing with as you say, with the AIDS epidemic, with people who lost their lives. Is it something that leaves you feeling pensive, or does leave you feeling upbeat, do you feel?
So, like with any good musical, it ends with the most beautiful finale number, which everybody's involved with, and it's massively uplifting. We were very fortunate to be asked to perform that song called Learning to Let Go at Pride this year, which went down incredibly well, and everybody said that it was hugely uplifting. But I think some of, not only the music is uplifting, but some of the stories as well. Obviously, there are some stories that are massively traumatic, but even some of the sad stories have messages of hope and inspiration and friendship and love. And I think that is what is so beautiful about this piece. At the forefront of the kind of popular culture at the moment is It's a Sin, with Ollie Alexander. That was hugely popular. And although it was about, this horrendous time in our history, and obviously, for me and you, it's in our, we can remember when that happened. I remember the big scary advert with the tombstone that was falling down. Don't die of ignorance and all that sort of stuff. And I remember being terrified as a child. And so I think that for the people that are learning about it now, the sort of younger generation, God, I sound old, don't I?
I'm saying nothing.
But for the people that are coming up now, especially in the theatre world, the AIDS virus nowadays is very different to how it was back in the 80s. There's a lot more education about it now, whereas, in the 1980s, and this is very apparent in our show as well, some people didn't even want to touch you. They didn't even want to breathe the same air as you because there was no education around how it was transmitted, or how to cope with it, or, there were all these clinical trials, yes, of course, but we didn't understand the virus to the extent that we do now. And Chrissy and I have been speaking to people that were around in those days. We were around in those days, but we were kids.
Yeah.
People that actually lived through it and experienced, the mania that was around in those days. And so I hope that when people leave the theatre, they'll see how far we've come in our attitudes, in our society, and just in how open-minded we are about, not only the AIDS virus, but also the queer community. And we're really excited about that. And we hope to inspire the next generation.
Absolutely. So without giving too much away from what you're saying then, monologues and the music, and the sort of the music as well coming in, these numbers. So it's not a sort of a linear storyline, as it were, going through the...
Not at all. No, it's not a linear storyline. I mean, we see some... so the singers have almost a linear... They're a bit like the narrators, I suppose, and people come in and out of their lives. They're connected to some of the characters. So we have some storylines that weave throughout, but really it's like a patchwork quilt, which is how it's supposed to be put together.
Yeah.
It's also very challenging for the actors because they are telling the audience about the most life-changing experience and events of their lives, but they've only got a page or 2 pages of dialogue to do it, which is really unusual for an actor. They usually have a whole script where people are perhaps giving clues about their character by what they say, by what they're saying about other characters, but there's none of that. They absolutely have to draw the inspiration from the words that are on the page, and that just shows how incredibly well written it is as well.
Ballacameen Studio Theatre then, 24th to the 26th of November.
Okay, tickets are available from thestudiotheatre.im, and yes, it is very strictly limited. We're only doing 3 performances, and for anybody that's been to the Ballacameen Studio Theatre, they know that there is limited space available.
It's not the Gaiety, so there's
no. So there is limited space available, and when and if it sells out, you'll be sad that you didn't pre-book your tickets.
That's about it for this week. Don't forget, if you want to hear anything again, go to manxradio.com, download the Spotlight podcast, listen where you want. Why not try it on a unicycle? Drop me a line with any artistic thoughts or ideas. You know the address. Howard Kane at manxradio.com, Spotlight at manxradio.com. Stay creative. I'll see you next week. Cheerio.